Season 17 of Overwatch's patch notes are very extensive, so I encourage you guys to check the timestamps and description of the video to find the summarized sections that you're most interested in, including the base game changes, stadium mode changes, map voting, a new Flashpoint map, a new limited time mode, and some more miscellaneous things. Without wasting any time, let's start with the base changes first. Alright, for every DPS hero, the damage roll passive is going to have its healing reduction increase from 25% to 30% for every target they hit. That's a big buff to them. But the global HP regen, the global regen passive for every hero is going to be increased from 5 to 6 seconds. That means for the supports, it is cut in half to 3 seconds for them specifically, but everybody else for tanks and DPS, 6 seconds before that base health regen kicks in. The devs comment that these changes are intended to broadly increase the impact of damage roll heroes and slightly reduce the amount of healing sustained felt in moment-to-moment gameplay. Alright, Junkrat Queen is getting some net buffs to her commanding shout. First, the overhealth will be increased from 175 to 200. The allied overhealth will be increased from 50 to 75. However, the duration for the self overhealth will be reduced from 5 to 4 seconds, but for allies, that duration will be increased from 3 to 4 seconds. So 4 seconds across the board now for both her and her allies. The devs comment that commanding shout has been updated to provide stronger team utility and improve its overall impact. The adjustments reward well-timed use by increasing survivability for both Junkrat Queen and her allies. The reduced duration for Junkrat Queen is a double-edged sword. She doesn't have the speed boost for as long, but the cooldown rotation is quicker since the cooldown begins once the effect ends. Alright, for MAUGA, his Berserker passive, that overhealth conversion rate will be increased from 40% to 50%. He will be healing a bit more. The devs comment that Berserker's overhealth conversion has been reverted to restore some of MAUGA's durability to a more balanced state following previous changes. For RAMATTRA's major perk, the Nanite Repair, the healing per second will be increased from 50 to 75. The devs comment that Nanite's repair healing per second has been increased to enhance its consistency and overall effectiveness during the short duration of Ravenous Vortex. For Zarya's minor perk, Graviton Crush, the damage dealt over time will be increased from 30% to 40% of the target's maximum health, and for her major perk, Spotter, the movement speed will be increased from 15% to 25% for the allies she decides to bubble. The devs comment that Spotter and Graviton Crush received targeted buffs to improve their effectiveness and ensure they remain viable choices alongside their counterpart perks, so I assume this is probably because nobody picks these perks, or else why are we buffing Zarya? For the damage roll, Bastion is getting his model and hitbox volume size reduced by 10%. The devs comment that Bastion's survivability is impacted by the large size of his model despite his high health and armor pool. Reducing his model and hit volume size by 10% improves his ability to avoid damage and overall balance. For Echo, her tri-shot spread will be decreased from 1.4 to 1.1 degrees. That's a tighter spread, that's a buff. The devs comment that reducing the spread of Echo's tri-shot improves its effectiveness at range, making it a more consistent option for a highly mobile hero. For PHARAH's Helix Shield's minor perk, the shield health regeneration triggers now when landing direct hits with rockets. The devs comment that Helix Shields now offer a survivability boost by triggering HP regen upon landing direct hits with rockets, which rewards player accuracy. For Reaper, his Hellfire shotguns, the damage per pellet will be increased from 5.4 to 5.75, which means if all the pellets hit, the total damage will be increased from 108 to 115 per volley. Let the devs explain themselves here. They're saying here that part of the reason heroes like Reaper and Tracer had their damage reduced in the past was due to the shift to the 5v5 format. Solo tanking and less frequent peeling made flanking heroes more effective, along with their strong performance on certain maps and game modes like Push and Flashpoint. This is now less of a concern with the introduction of map voting and hero bans, which help limit overperformance, so we're restoring some of their damage potency. Reaper getting buffed. For Soldier 76, his Stim Pack perk, a small change here, just quality of life, where on PC only, the Stim Pack default button will now change from the next weapon to Equip Weapon 1, which is 1 on the keyboard by default. For Tracer's Pulse Pistols, her weapon, the damage will be increased from 5.5 to 6 per pellet. The devs comment that similar to Reaper, Tracer is getting back some of the damage she lost due to past format and map concerns. Looks like she's recalled back to stronger bullets again. Oh god. For Venture, the Smart Excavator recovery time will be reduced from 0.7 to 0.6 seconds. That's a buff. That means there's less time in between shots. The devs comment that this change improves Venture's damage output by increasing fire rate, which enhances weapon consistency without increasing the lethality of their combo. For the supports, LIFEWEAVER's Cleansing Grasp perk, the life grip cooldown will be reduced by 4 seconds if a debuff is cleansed. Devs comment that successfully cleansing a debuff now reduces life grip's cooldown, improving the usefulness of Cleansing Grasp when timed well. For Lucio's Crossfade ability, the base healing will be increased from 16 to 20 health per second on the healing song. The devs comment that Lucio plays a unique role within the support lineup, offering strong mobility and team utility. However, his healing output has been lagging behind other supports, especially with the increase in hero health pools. This change makes his passive healing more impactful and better aligned with other support heroes. For Moira's Biotic Grasp, that's her primary fire, the healing per second will be increased from 70 to 80. The devs comment that we wanted to boost Moira's overall healing output as she doesn't offer as much direct utility compared to other support heroes, and we're reducing some of the healing impact in this patch through the damage roll passive. We're happy with the cadence of managing her healing resource and swapping the damage to restore it, so we opted to adjust the direct healing rather than the resource availability or a similar mechanic. And finally, for Zenyatta's Duality Major perk, they're increasing the converted damage from 30% to 40%. The devs comment that Duality has struggled due to the number of conditions required for activation. Increasing the converted damage improves its effectiveness when those conditions are met. Alright, the stadium changes are very lengthy, so buckle up. Let's begin with the general updates first. The competitive ranks have been reset with everybody restarting at Rookie 1 once again. I don't know if people are going to be happy about hearing this. The players who reach the Epic rank for the first time in the tank role can still earn the Epic Elite ORISA skin. Same for the DPS Epic rank for the Elite Genji skin. Same for supports with the Epic Elite MOIRA skin. And for those who reach the All-Star rank, they'll be able to earn the Legendary All-Star Mercy skin and the Legendary All-Star Juno skin from the previous season. The devs comment that after our improvements to matchmaking in Season 16, we want to give more time for players to have a fair chance to climb to the All-Star rank and earn the All-Star Juno skin. Both the All-Star Juno skin and the All-Star Mercy skin will no longer be available to earn at the end of Season 17, so that's pretty much until September. Okay, so new to the Stadium roster, we have for tanks, we have Sigma, for damage, we have Junkrat, and for supports, we have Zenyatta. For the new Stadium maps, we now have Esperanza and Samoa Volcano. They've also added the Stadium Forge, which is a new feature to create builds, save them, and easily access them later from any Stadium game. The Stadium Armory has also been updated to support additional example builds and offer quick access to your saved builds with a new tabbed view. You can access the new Stadium Forge from the Stadium Practice range, and you can save up to 10 builds per hero. You can also access quick actions from the build list to order your builds, share, edit, duplicate, or delete them. You can name and describe your builds to easily find them later. And you can also share your custom build by generating a share code. Don't worry, I got you guys. I'm going to share a bunch of my personal build codes in another video coming up soon. Your codes are good for up to 1 year. You can also copy example builds to your saved list and make modifications. You can copy builds from any player in Stadium games, which allows you to review or edit them later in the Stadium Forge. You can also copy builds from the Stadium replays, and you can save builds that you've already had in progress from any Stadium game. Okay, they have example builds now, new example builds. They've been added for all the 21 heroes. If you go over to this tab, they've been expanded from 9 items to 12 items, and the example builds now have early, late, and flex categories for items, giving players more insights into when to purchase. Stadium custom game modes is now supported. Yahoo, that's good. I'm going to be doing Mythbusters for this, so make sure you leave some Stadium interactions with items and powers in the comments, and I'll be sure to test them. You can choose from a variety of options to customize your Stadium games here. They've also improved the third-person camera. They have improved aim-down sights added for Ana and Ashe because it was very awkward to be third-person over the shoulder and then scope in and be first-person all of a sudden. And now nearby allies will smoothly fade in and out when your camera collides with them, so that's pretty nice. And then for the Stadium ranked updates, this is mostly an algorithm thing, but they've reduced the size of the Pro, All-Star, and Legend ranked progression bands, which I assume means it's harder to reach these ranks now. All right, now on to the actual stadium changes. For D.Va's Mecha Punch Power, the booster eliminations will now also reset the cooldown of boosters. Additionally, during the boosters, the quick melee will now gain 50% attack speed instead of 75% damage, so you can bonk them a few times instead of a big burst. For the rare ability hero item called Dahyun's Detonator, it now shows a danger warning sign to the enemy if the enemy is within the blast radius. They've also nerfed the radius from 200% to 100%. For the Nano Cola Nitrous Epic Survival Hero item, they've increased the base health stat from 25 to 50, but they've removed the 5% health increase modifier. The devs comment that after a full season of play, it's clear that D.Va is not standing out as a top tier tank pick in the current meta. While this update focuses on improving clarity and consistency, we're keeping a close eye on her performance and have additional changes planned to help her hold her own against the fierce competition in Stadium. For Junkrat Queen's Let's Go Win Power, they're decreasing the cooldown reduction from 100% to 50% of its cooldown whenever you get an elimination, so it's no longer a full reset, you only get half your cooldowns back. For the Cut'em Gracie Power, they're increasing the reduction on cooldown to 2 seconds per enemy hit, which is up from 1 second. The devs comment that Shout and Chop has proven to be a highly effective combo for Junkrat Queen, often giving her a bit too much reliability in close range engagements. This change is a first step towards dialing back that effectiveness while still preserving the aggressive playstyle that makes her so satisfying to play. For the Siphonic Sphere rare survival hero item, they're adding 25 HP as a stat to it. And for the Arc Finder rare ability hero item, they're adding 5% cooldown reduction to it. The devs comment that these two items have been underperforming, lacking the stats needed to be more impactful. This update addresses that by adding item stats to them. In this section of the notes, it says Sigma is added and it goes through all of his abilities and powers and his items, but I'm not going to go through that. You're going to look through it yourself or else the video will get a little too long. Moving on, Reinhardt. His impact burst power now only damages other enemies around the primary target. The explosion damage is also going to be increased to 30% of the fire strike damage, up from 15%. For his Magma Strike power, the Trail of Lava now triggers on every second fire strike instead of every fire strike cast within the 2 seconds. That's a big buff to it. For the Chimera's Maw, it's getting an upgrade in rarity from the rare blue section to now the purple epic section. It now has an added 25% fire strike projectile speed. It also now has a new effect, so it now says for each additional enemy fire strike damage beyond the initial target, it'll reduce the fire strike cooldown by 5%, so a maximum of 20% if it hits all 4 or 5 people. His Rocket Strike epic hero ability item has been removed. For his Wilhelmwagen Epic Hero Survival item, it is now changed from a power to now an epic survival item, as you can see. If you're familiar with Reinhardt, you'll notice this. It now has an added 50 armor to the stat. It's 11,000 stadium cash, and they removed the section where you heal for 5% of the damage it mitigates. That part is gone. For the Infusion Generator power, they changed it to a power. It used to be an epic survival item. The barrier field health increase now only increases from the bonus max life, and the barrier field health scaling is increased from 100% to 250%. For his To Me, My Friends power, they've increased the healing based on max life from 4% to 5%. The devs comment that we're shifting some of the power in the Fire Strike build to focus more on the higher uptime of Fire Strike and Magma Strike's Trail of Lava, while pulling back from the high single target burst that Impact Burst enabled. We're also making some adjustments to Reinhardt's barrier build to make it a more compelling option and have a smoother progression curve. For Zarya, in general, each barrier can now only grant a maximum of 45 energy regardless of the barrier health. For the barrier benefits power, they've increased the overhealth based on the remaining barrier health from 50% to 100%, so a buff there. However, the duration will be reduced from 3 seconds to 2 seconds. For the Containment Shield power, they've removed the Barrier Heals 20 life increased by energy and replaced it with Barrier Heals target for 5% of your max life for every 1 second. For the Fission Field power, they've added a 25% reduced maximum energy gain. For the Life Lift power, the bonus max life increase now only increases from max life added from items. They've also increased the barrier health scaling from 50% of your bonus max life from items up from 25%. For the No Limits power, the maximum energy will be decreased from 150 to 125. For the Volskaya Vortex power, they fixed an issue where the Vortex from Volskaya Vortex did not grant ultimate charge, and they've reduced the damage from 100 to 80. For the Bigger Beam Epic Weapon Hero item, Stadium Cash cost will be increased from 11,000 to 12,000. For the Superconductor Epic Hero ability item, they've removed the increased barrier duration and instead replaced it with after particle barrier is destroyed or expires, gain decaying overhealth equal to 50% of damage mitigated during the particle barrier. For the Lynx's Data Drive Epic Hero ability item, they've removed the using projected barrier on an ally refunds 20% of its cooldown and instead replaced it with restore your life equal to 30% of damage mitigated by the projected barrier. The devs comment that Zarya was consistently generating too much energy in Stadium due to the increased damage and increased barrier health she can obtain. We're capping the energy gain here to lower the ceiling of her energy gain to make her more manageable. We're also pulling back on the effects that increased her barrier uptime and replacing them with effects that reward her for smarter barrier usage. For Ashe, Bob Jr.'s power getting nerfed, 20 seconds to a 10-second duration. For the Reload Therapy power, it no longer generates currency on the health you gain from reloading. For the rare survival hero item called Silver Spurs, they're increasing the duration from 3 seconds to 5 seconds, and it now reloads 25% of the max ammo on Coach Gun per use. The devs comment that Silver Spurs has been underperforming and often lacks synergy with common builds. This update improves its utility and cohesion, making it a more rewarding option that better complements a variety of playstyles. Bob Jr. has proven to be a strong utility option and great for locking down control points while catching enemies off guard with early ultimate. However, its effectiveness at holding territory became a bit too reliable. We're adjusting its strength to bring it more in line with other options while still retaining its strategic value. For Cassidy's Fan the Hammer secondary fire, only in the Stadium mode. After the 6th shot, the weapon spread is increased, and in Stadium you can obviously increase your ammo cap, right? For the Dead Man Walking power, the bonus ammo is now gained on the critical final blow, and they've added a max cap of bonus ammo to 4. For the power, Just Roll With It, they're decreasing the damage reduction from 50% to 25%, and the total damage reduction is now 75% during the combat roll. The devs comment that Cassidy's roll into Fan the Hammer playstyle was always intended as a close range burst option, but in practice it was punishing enemies from ranges where they had little chance to respond. This adjustment refocuses that combo towards close quarters encounters where its high risk, high reward nature can shine without creating frustration at a distance. For Freya, they've increased the cash income from the damage and healing by 13%. That's interesting. For the Lil Feldy power, they've increased the damage to 50% reduced damage, up from the 60% reduced damage. They've added 25% reduced radius on the bola shot fired by this Lily Feldy power. The visual effects has been reduced to reduce the visual noise of the bola shot here, and they've updated the tooltip to reflect the earlier changes they made last season. For the Hunter's Mark item, they've added 5% weapon power, and the bonus cash on eliminating a target with a bounty of 750 or more increased from 250 to 350. The devs comment that Freya has been struggling in Stadium since her nerfs in the core game combined with the Stadium hotfix nerfs. We're increasing her cash gain to help her be more on par with other DPSs in Stadium and buffing Hunter's Mark to make it a more reliable option when behind. We're dialing back the visual noise of Lily Falde to further reduce the frustration surrounding the power while increasing the damage to make it a more viable option. For Genji, his Hidden Blade power, they've reduced the quick melee damage from 25 to 15, and the melee lifesteal has been increased though from 50% to 60%. The Laceration power, they've increased the damage over time to 35% of the Swift Strike's damage, up from 25%, and they fixed an issue where this power actually didn't benefit from the ability lifesteal. The Ambusher's Optic item cost has been increased from 10,000 to 11,000. For the Clean Sweep item, they've increased the ability power from 10% to 15%. The devs comment that melee Genji builds have been very prominent, which is awesome. However, the Bursty Backstab build is a bit too consistent and can feel hard to interact with. We're reducing the damage ceiling for this build, but upping its sustain to compensate. We're also adding a little bit more power to the ability power Swift Strike build to make its key pieces feel a bit more impactful early on in a match. We'll be looking at making a larger set of changes to Genji in a future update. Alright, the notes here say Junkrat has been added, and they go through all his powers and his abilities and his items, but we're going to skip that. For Mei, the Avalanche power has been completely removed. They've replaced it with Cold Blaster, a new power where the Endothermic Blaster's primary fire does 20% increased damage to enemies within Blizzard. For the Permafrost power, they've increased Mei's size by 15% when she's above 30% ability power. For the Himalayan Hat epic weapon hero item, they've increased the attack speed from 10% to 15%. Devs comment that while Avalanche was doing its job, it often created confusion for enemies where many couldn't clearly understand why they were being slowed or where the effect was coming from. We're shifting the focus of the power to enhance Mei's primary fire, giving her more burst potential and rewarding players who can cage the enemy within a mini blizzard or a blizzard. This should make the power feel more intuitive and impactful for both Mei and her opponents. For Reaper, the Reaping hero base passive, like his general passive, the health that he restored from the lifesteal granted by this passive was unintentionally granting Stadium Cash, so they've removed it. For his power Strangle Step, it now has a 30% increase to its Shadow Step cast speed. For the Wraith Renewal power, they've reduced the healing from 10% to 7%. For the Night Creeper rare weapon hero item, they've moved it from the epic category to the rare item, the blue items. It no longer has a 30% Shadow Step cast speed. As you can see, it's moved on to the power earlier. It now costs 3750 cash, and it now provides 5% weapon power, 5% move speed, and after using an ability, nearby enemies are revealed to you for 3 seconds. For the Crowd Control rare ability hero item, they moved it from the epic purple section to the blue rare section. They've replaced the ability power stat with a 10% ability lifesteal stat, and it now grants 4% ability power per target, down from 5%, and it costs 4,000 cash. For the Wreath of Ruin epic ability hero item, they fixed a bug where the move speed increase was not affecting Death Blossoms triggered by the Death Step. For the Crimson Cloak epic ability hero item, they moved it from the survival items to ability items. They changed the effect to when Death Blossom starts, you now gain overhealth equal to 5% of your max life for each enemy within its range. They've also reduced the cost to 9,500. For the Devastation rare survival hero item, they've replaced the ability lifesteal stat with 25 flat health. They've reduced the effect cap to 75 health, down from 100, and they've reduced the cost from 4,000 to 3,750 cash. The devs comment that this update to Reaper is primarily looking at making ability power Reaper a bit more reliable in the early and mid rounds. We're reorganizing where some of the power of the build lies, as well as fixing a few interactions that were not quite working correctly. We'll be keeping a close eye on this build as it has high snowball potential when it works. We're also reducing the power of Wraith Renewal as it has been a consistent high performer in terms of survivability and cash gain. For Soldier 76's frontline power, the overhealth now stacks when multiple biotic fields are active at once, and the overhealth based on max life stat has been reduced from 30% to 25%. The devs comment that Frontliners continues to be one of Soldier 76's least popular options. We're allowing the overhealth to stack to enable more synergies with powers that create additional biotic fields to allow for more build paths. For Ana, the double dosage rare ability hero item has been redesigned to work only on enemies, and it does not stack. They've also decreased the cooldown from 35% to 30%. The devs comment that double dosage was originally designed to support aggressive plays. We've redesigned it to better serve as a forward-facing tool, rewarding players who take initiative and engage directly with the enemy. For Juno, the 40 Glide epic survival item has been completely removed. The Lock-on Shield rare survival hero item has been changed from the ability category to survival category. They changed its item stat from 10% ability power to 25 health, and they've decreased the overhealth scaler from 50% to 25%. For the Boosted Rockets epic survival hero item, it obviously had its rarity changed from rare to epic. The price increased from 4,000 to 12,000, and they've updated an item effect where during glide boosts you now gain 10% damage reduction. For the Medicinal Missiles power, they've removed the additional 30 healing. The devs comment that Juno had a standout performance last season with pulsars delivering consistently high impact. For this season, we're making targeted adjustments to slightly lower its peak output while opening up more room for build variety. The goal is to preserve her strength while encouraging a broader range of viable playstyles. Okay, for KIRIKO, in the patch notes they say Soothing Step power, but no such power exists. I think they meant Donut Delivery, so something to amend right here. They've increased the healing from 80 to 120, and they replaced the 10% ability power with 10% cooldown reduction. For the Triple Threat power, the spread has been reduced by 50%. For the self-care power, they've redesigned it so when you use healing Ofuda, each Ofuda thrown heals you for 3% of max life. The devs comment that Soothing Step was designed to be a core part of Kiriko's ability power focused build, enabling her to serve as a highly mobile hero. This update brings it more in line with other builds while reinforcing her role as a capable burst healer in fast-paced fights. Additionally, Self-Care has been redesigned, both to address a bug and to make its healing more accurately reflect Kiriko's healing output. For Lucio's crowd pleaser power, they've adjusted the healing so it's 100% of the crossfade healing to 20 healing that is doubled while Amp It Up is active. For the Vivace power, they've kind of retooled it. It used to say while you're wall riding, sound wave cooldown will refresh 25% faster and adds 1 max ammo every second until you reload. And instead, they've replaced that whole thing, and now it's every 1 second you're wall riding, you're going to gain 3% move speed and 1.5% attack speed for 5 seconds, which stacks up to 10 times. For the Sonic Boom power, healing now also triggers on the quick melee damage. The devs comment that due to the buffs to Lucio's crossfade healing in the core game, we're decoupling Crowd Pleaser's healing from crossfade. This will make Crowd Pleaser feel more impactful when outside of Amp It Up, while ensuring the healing during Amp It Up is within bounds. We're also working Vivace to have a more specialized niche, as well as buffing Sonic Boom to enable more build options. These patch notes, they now go over Zenyatta, but we're going to skip all that and you're just going to look at it in game. Okay, next section says Armory Update, so a bunch of new general items that every hero can buy in Stadium. First, we have Aerial Distressor, an epic general weapon item. These are its stats. They have Overdrive Core, an epic general survival item. The Sonic Recharge, this epic general ability item. Vitality Amplifier, a rare general ability item. Emergency Chip, a rare general weapon item. And those are all the new items. For some of the old items, there's a lot of cost changes. For electrolytes, this green item, the cost has been reduced from 1,500 to 1,000. For Iron Eyes, it's been reduced from 4,500 to 4,000. For salvage slugs, it's been reduced from 9,500 to 9,000. For cushioned padding, it's down from 4,000 to 3,750. For BioLight Overflow, the overhealth will be increased from 50 to 75. And for Divine Intervention, the life restored from taking more than 100 damage has been increased to 20%, up from 15%. Moving on to the next section, we have the new core gameplay map added this season called Aatlis, a beautiful map based in Morocco. You have a high-end resort, historical artisan guilds, it has it all. There is a new LTM limited time mode called Hacks and Hijinx that comes out on July 15th to 28th. They put it in the notes here, but it's not out yet for a couple more weeks. It is a game mode where there's rotating modifiers, so you get stuff like low gravity or ultimate charge will be granted on health packs, etc, etc. So each match is a little bit remixed and a little bit wacky. If you queue up to the main game, you'll notice that map voting is now a new system added to the game. It's a new feature that gives players more agency on what map they prefer to play. 3 maps will appear when you start a match, and each player will cast a single vote on the map they want to play. The votes will be displayed, and then the game will roll to see which vote is selected. The more that's voted, the more likely it'll be chosen. There is a new report category called Emergency for like extreme harm and threats. They're saying false reporting here may result in actions against your account, so obviously don't abuse this, only for extreme cases. You also have a new player endorsement system to be a bit more dynamic, and you have a new streamer protect option to kind of hide and flag the music, because obviously there's a lot of collabs that Overwatch is doing, and some streamers are getting false claim because it just plays copyright music in the menu. I think that's about it for this patch. Let me know if I should have separated the stadium or the base game changes in 2 separate videos, or just having it all in one place is pretty nice, right? That's what I opted for, but if you guys have more feedback on how these things should be delivered, let me know. It took a long time to put this out, but hopefully you guys stuck through with me to the end, and if you did, thank you. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.